What if I told you one of the British Empire's most humiliating defeats didn't happen in Europe, but in the deserts and rivers of the Middle East? What if an entire army, thousands of men, simply vanished into captivity? And what if, at the same time, a brutal winter offensive in the Caucasus shattered an empire's strongest defenses? This is World War I, but not the version you learned in school. This is the untold story of the Ottoman resurgence in 1916, a year of survival, strategy, and devastating battles. By early 1916, the balance of power began to shift. The Ottoman Empire, once called the sick man of Europe, was fighting back. Reinforcements from Gallipoli gave them strength. Fresh divisions were deployed across the Caucasus, Mesopotamia, and Sinai. But their enemies were preparing something far more dangerous.
In the frozen mountains of the Caucasus, the Russians launched one of the most daring winter offensives in history. Their target? Erzurum, a fortress city, heavily fortified, considered nearly impossible to capture. The Ottomans believed it was untouchable. They were wrong. General Nikolai Yudenich prepared carefully. His troops were trained for extreme winter warfare. Supplies were secured. Movements were hidden. When the attack began, it came from multiple directions. The Ottomans were caught off guard. Russian forces pushed through snow-covered mountains, breaking defensive lines. Fortified positions fell under artillery fire. Counterattacks failed. Confusion spread. Within weeks, the line collapsed. Entire divisions retreated, abandoning strongholds they once trusted. And then, the final assault. In the dead of night, Russian artillery opened fire. Infantry advanced under darkness. Wave after wave struck Ottoman defenses. Some positions held, barely. At one fort, soldiers fought through 8 assaults. Ammunition ran low. The wounded stayed in battle. Just as defeat seemed certain, supplies arrived under fire, carried by animals through chaos. It was desperation on both sides. But the pressure broke the defense. Russian troops surged forward. Erzurum fell.
The consequences were devastating. Tens of thousands of Ottoman soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. Hundreds of guns were lost. Russian forces advanced deep into Ottoman territory. For the first time in years, the Eastern Front was collapsing. But while the Ottomans were losing ground in the Caucasus, something even more shocking was unfolding in Mesopotamia. British forces had advanced toward Baghdad, confident in victory. But the offensive failed. Cut off and surrounded, General Charles Townshend retreated to Kut. There, his army was trapped. What followed was one of the longest and most brutal sieges of the war. For 147 days, British and Indian troops held out, starving, exhausted, surrounded. Relief attempts were launched. Every single one failed. Wave after wave tried to break through Ottoman defenses along the Tigris. They faced machine guns, trenches, and prepared positions. Thousands were cut down. Entire brigades stalled. Mud, heat, and confusion turned assaults into chaos. Casualties mounted. Kut remained under siege. Inside the town, conditions worsened. Food ran out. Disease spread. Hope faded. In a final desperate move, the British tried negotiation. They offered money, weapons, anything. The Ottomans refused. On April 29, 1916, Kut surrendered. Over 13,000 soldiers were captured. It was the largest British surrender of the war and one of the Ottoman Empire's greatest victories. But victory came with a cost. Many prisoners died from hunger, disease, and forced marches. Thousands never returned. At the same time, in the Sinai Desert, another front ignited. Ottoman forces launched raids near the Suez Canal, targeting Britain's critical supply route. Surprise attacks struck isolated outposts. Some were overrun, others resisted fiercely. The desert became a battlefield of sudden violence and retreat. Though the Ottomans gained ground briefly, the British adapted. Defenses improved, supply lines strengthened. A counteroffensive was coming. By mid-1916, one truth was clear. The Ottoman Empire could still fight. It had crushed a British army in Mesopotamia. It had challenged Britain in Sinai. But it had suffered a crushing defeat in the Caucasus. The war was growing more brutal, more complex, more unpredictable. And what came next would change everything. Because soon, a rebellion would rise from within the empire itself, one that would reshape the Middle East forever. The Arab Revolt was coming. If you found this powerful, like, subscribe, and share. The next chapter is even bigger.